Welcome to Front and Center with Jacquie Jordan.
Jacquie Jordan, it's Marla Maples. I hear you've got a new iHeartRadio podcast, Front and Center, making things happen. So here's to all the people who are making impact. Have a great time. God bless.
This is Front and Center with your host, Jacquie Jordan.
Entertainment and pop culture expert Jacquie Jordan is with us.
Two-time Emmy-nominated Hollywood producer Jacquie Jordan.
We are the show where we talk with the change agents, the storytellers, and the activators from behind the scenes, making impacts. And joining me is co-host Barbb. With show producer Stephanie Cobian.
I'm a war myself. I'm a war movie myself.
What I do is provoke conversations and provoke a creative process.
I can tell you, Tommy Lee Jones, when you go to do an interview, he already sets you up.
Welcome back to Front and Center. I'm Jacquie Jordan here with show producer Stephanie Cobian and co-host Phillip Andrew Barbb. We are the people behind the scenes in life and reality who are now front and center. In this show series, we meet the behind-the-scenes storytellers, change agents, and activators that affect and impact collective narratives. Specifically, today, our guests are all shooting stars breaking the mold.
Which is just from the song Smash Mouth. Phil, I don't know if you knew this. Jacquie and I had to do some little research that in the lyrics, it says, all that glitters is gold. But did you know that it's all that glitters is not gold?
I did not know either of those things. I did not know the original line or the line it originally came from. You're learning things every day.
Anyways, a little background on it then, since you didn't actually know that, because I didn't know that either. I felt really stupid. I always thought it was all that glitters is gold. And I'm like, of course. It's in two songs. It's in the Smash Mouth and it's in a Led Zeppelin Stairway to Heaven song. So now you're going to have to listen to it in the song. But actually what it means, it's from a Shakespeare play, The Merchant of Venice. It's a line from a secondary plot of the play, if you're familiar with it. But anyways, it actually means panning for gold often results in fool's gold, which actually reflects more light than gold. So now everybody's got some trivia they know.
And the reason I liked this little piece of trivia is, one, I'm guilty as charged for selling gold and glitter as a company at TVGuestpert. But in truth, we require from ourselves and our clients a lot of hard work and authenticity to get what we receive. And it's only what people see that is shiny and bright. They don't necessarily see all the effort, the work, and the sacrifice, and the discipline, and the commitment that go on behind the scenes. So that's where this whole conversation came in. And that idea that you're from Detroit, I'm not from here. I'm from New Jersey. Stephanie is from here. But, you know, I came out here because Hollywood was a shiny, bright light.
Totally right. Like I grew up, Midwest kid, and it was like every movie I saw, like, what do you mean high school kids get to walk outdoors from class to class? Like, that was enough for me to want to be in California.
Wait, you were inside buildings?
Oh,
that's horrible. San Diego,
You don't have classrooms inside buildings, huh?
No, that's weird.
We just have them right on the beach. We're surfing all day long. But that's,
I'm
that's
shoveling snow.
Right? Oh my goodness. I always joke, like, I remember I had a girlfriend of mine, when I first moved to LA, got in my car and held up this like plastic scrapey thing and was like, what is this? And it was my ice scraper left in my car from when I was in Michigan. She was from California, had never seen an ice scraper before.
I wouldn't know one.
Well, I came here, I bought a ticket, which was really rebellious. It was a $99 flight, a cross-country ticket to come out here. And I stayed with like those third cousins you kind of know, you really don't know, but they lived in California.
Yeah.
So for $99, I flew across the country and they took me to Universal Studios and the Hollywood Walk of, and I was done. Like I couldn't get back here fast enough. Sold, exactly. Yeah. So I bought into it.
For $99.
Sinker for $99.
That's okay, that's a good deal.
That's a great deal. You can't get that now.
Right,
even
go to
with
Universal,
frequent
that's a
flyer
great
miles.
weekend.
You can't even get your baggage on a plane for that money.
We don't need to do this radio show. We need to open a travel agency.
Well, Jacquie and I in TVGuestpert, Phil, we actually worked backstage before at the Teen Choice Awards, and Jessica Alba actually came into the backstage, and it is actors and actresses. Everything you see is so what they want you to see. You know, she comes very sweet, very kind, very nice, beautiful. But when that camera turns on her, she knows how to do the perfect pose, the perfect smile at the right time, at the right angle. And that's what you see. They don't see her in the hot, sweaty room with her makeup and she's worried and her paparazzi of like 5-6 people to help her. And, you know, she's doing social media on her phone. You don't see all of that outside. Like nobody else in Chicago or New Jersey would see those things, except the people who are working there. And, you know, it's not all shiny. She's sweating.
It's
her
a lot
makeup
of work.
off.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
All that glitters is not gold. So this is what the show is about, acknowledging things that happen from every single angle and not just the story.
Which our first guest is going to be Essi, and Jackie can explain a little bit about him. Before we go into him, I just wanted to bring up a show. I know that there's a lot of superhero fatigue, but there's a show on Amazon called The Boys, and I've been talking to Jackie a lot about it, and it is a flip on superheroes. So it is, let me take the Captain Americas and the Wonder Womans and all of them, and basically they're under corporations, that it is no longer what you see, what the public sees in the show versus what, you know, is inside of actually their corporation now is not perfect, and it's kind of ugly, and there's illegal activities, which leads me a little bit into the Essi, our next guest. Again, Jackie will introduce him, but in the show, they are creating superheroes. And essentially with creating superheroes, they're also creating terrorists to fight the superheroes, because superheroes don't really necessarily need to stop robberies.
And it's kind of that fun thing we do in entertainment. It's not the wrong thing we do. It's just the fun thing we do. But we sometimes glamorize things that, you know, aren't necessarily meant to be glamorous. And bringing this story forward front and center on the next 3 sequences of podcast shows that you're going to be watching with us is we're going to bring a real life gentleman in, a good friend of ours, Essi Bagheri, author of Shattered Soul, The True Story of a Child Soldier, who was born and raised in the Middle East to be what we would call a terrorist by the age of 13. So we're going to hear his story, and he is a symbol of inspiration and hope because he's out there on the speaker circuit sharing his experience. And then we have Sandra De Castro Buffington, a friend of mine. She is exactly what we talk about here on Front and Center, an activator affecting collective narratives, and why she is so perfect for this sequence of storytelling is her work has inspired 565 storylines on 91 TV shows across 35 networks and platforms in the span of 3 years. So she has this unusual personal story of her life, and she goes in and works with scripted television showrunners and producers on things like Grey's Anatomy, shows that we all watch. And she affects the consciousness of the producers for the storylines by taking them traveling to different parts of the world so that they can see what's really going on and bring those storylines back. And then we're going to wrap up this sequence with international entertainment journalist Reba Merrill, also a dear friend. I call her my fairy godmother. And what so fascinates me about her is that in experience as an interview, as a celebrity interviewer, and through her body of work that she's accumulated, she has been able to archive a time stamp in film history from Harrison Ford doing Star Wars to working with the Academy on movie nominations that become Academy Award winning. And she literally has been the behind the scenes person who's going to come front and center with us today. So those are our next 3 sequences that we're going to be talking about. Everybody will be taking their seat, but that is the theme for today. All that glitters is not gold. And these are the people behind the scenes who are our change agents and our activators. Up next, raised to be a terrorist, author Essi Bagheri, Shattered Soul, The True Story of a Child Soldier, shares his escape.
I couldn't go back and say, I'm sorry, I changed my mind, I'm scared, I'm a kid, I don't want to do that. And the only choice that I had at the time to pull my gun and put it in my arm and shoot myself.
And later on Front and Center, Sandra De Castro Buffington influences television storylines from behind the scenes.
My goal is to reach the people who are not even asking the questions.
And legendary celebrity interviewer Reba Merrill celebrates a lifetime career of getting movie stars to spill their secrets.
In the beginning, I did the interviews in hotel rooms. Then I did interviews on film sets. And then in 1991, I got a chance to start doing interviews for international. Totally different world.
If you are doing extraordinary things from behind the scenes, from any walk of life, we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to us on YouTube at TVGuestpert and/or TVGuestpert Broadcast Podcast. Are you ready to take your seat front and center and need some behind-the-scenes media training? Sign up for our online course, Media Marketing. For more information, go to tvguestpert.com.
Alex Detail was a child genius who saved the world from the evil harvesters. But a decade later, this mysterious alien force has returned, and Alex is no longer a prodigy. Now, in order to save the world again, he must survive his kidnapping, find his evil clone, and get his ship to the planet Pluto, where he will uncover the universe's ultimate power. Alex Detail's Revolution, a thrilling new novel by Darren Campo. Buy online or wherever books are sold. Welcome back to Front and Center with Jacquie Jordan.
If a person like me can go through all the pain and struggle and all the things that I've been through, and I sit here in Los Angeles in front of you beautiful people, that anybody can change their lives.
Welcome back to Front and Center. I'm Jacquie Jordan, here with show producer Stephanie Cobian and co-host Phillip Andrew Barbb. And in the hot seat is Essi Bagheri, author of Shattered Soul, True Story of a Child Soldier. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jacquie. I appreciate it.
We talk a lot about the behind-the-scenes people making a difference, and we had a conversation earlier about how sometimes Hollywood over-glamorizes storylines. Sometimes we have these superhero shows that glamorize like soldiers. And this is really the heart of your story, is that you were raised to be a child soldier, which here in the United States we would have called a terrorist.
That's correct. Especially in North America, we are very when what we see is in TV, and my story is that we don't just become a suicide bomber or terrorist or mass shooting or a gang member. Just we don't overnight.
Right.
There's a process, and there's a process that a child like me brainwashed at the age of 13 to do unthinkable, which I can't even imagine to put to think for another 13 years old, 14 year old child. But it's that's unfortunately the society that we live, and we need to educate people.
And a lot of what you went through, just because I know your story, I mean, it's almost like you were born into a culture that did it. Your mother, they call her, was it a 12-year-old child bride? We would actually refer that to like kidnapping and rape at this point, but that's, the culture of you were born right into a culture that was really, it's definitely not of American cultural values is what and you were kind of groomed. Can you just talk about some of the grooming process?
My mom got married when she was like not even 12 years old, and my father was 32 years old. And imagine being in that culture.
Kidnapping and rape.
Yes, yeah. I know the word. It's like now we can talk about it. It's
yes,
like, yeah.
Right.
But it's like, and of course, what do you expect for a child to become? And I was 6 months when I was separated from my real mom, and there's so many events happen, Jacquie, that it's like unthinkable. But my whole story is about all these little pieces. Who would have known that at the age of 13, being brainwashed to volunteer?
And what were you promised?
Well, yeah, that's what I say. How were you sold? I mean, essentially, what they would tell you is they make you do things. They're selling you on something. They're showing you the gold.
For sure.
Fool's gold.
Definitely. It's, again, we come back to that brainwashing that as a 13-year-old child, and being grew up as we just already talked, dysfunctional family, being so physically, mentally, emotionally, and every way abused. Age of 13, of course, I wanted to belong to someone, and here comes group of people promise you to, go to heaven and all these things. Have 72 virgin, and at that time I wanted to just belong to somewhere, and that's where I choose. I can say I choose at the time to join.
Does a 13-year-old even know what all those things that they promised were?
No.
I mean, the 13-year-old doesn't know what 72 virgins are.
No, of course, exactly.
I mean, yeah, that's what they're using.
I think all you know is acceptance, and all you know is a sense of belonging, in a sense that here are people that are creating an environment that you feel that they care about you and that you have value and you have worth. And it's like that. I think that's so core fundamental to what all of us experience in life of wanting. And especially when you're in a situation where you weren't getting that and then it came along, like it makes so much sense why at 13 it was a deal you're going to turn down.
Do you want to share what happened to your friends? I mean, because what happened to your friends was a turning point for you in getting out.
Well, I was in a training camp for almost 3 to 4 months, and then I was ready to, we were in a battlefield at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's just chaos all over, bomb, bullets, everything, bodies, and I saw my friend step on a landmine in front of me. And he was like 14 years old, and then he blew up to the pieces. And the impact of that explosion threw me out a few meters away, and I became conscious, and I said, this is wrong, and I don't want to do that. And just thinking about it, I talk about this a lot, but every time that I talk about it, it just brings me so much emotion.
Of course.
And then I realized that I don't want to do this.
And this, I just want to say, like, this is real. And in here, in the keeping with this, all that glitters is not gold, we kind of glamorize this whole super soldier thing where,
war
children are being kidnapped and born into a real situation that is not only a violation of your every right you have, and it's also a violation of the agenda that is pointing it at other people too.
That's right.
It's just wrong on every level, and just calling that out, with sharing your story in the way that it's, it is kind of a consciousness poke, like we just need to keep it real, even as entertainment people telling stories.
Yeah, as I said, it's unfortunate, but to finish that subject that I was in, I couldn't go back and say, I'm sorry, I changed my mind, I'm scared, I'm a kid, I don't want to do that. And the only choice that I had at the time to pull my gun and put it in my arm and shoot myself. And so they think that I get shot by enemy and able to escape, and the rest is just history, trauma, addiction, psych ward, and on and on and on to where I'm at today.
Yeah, you're such a bright light. Yeah. You're such a bright light, and you're so important to be out there speaking, and with the courage that you have to share your story with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah.
How does it feel to see the glamour in Hollywood of like war story? Do you watch any war? I assume you don't. Yeah. Great
question. It's like my friend always asks me, "Let's go to watch this war movie." It's like, and it's like I'm a war myself. I'm a war movie myself.
Right. I can feel like that too.
The real war, and it's like I'm not attractive. What can you
don't do video games?
I don't video games. I don't watch.
Even superhero movies are. There's a lot of fighting in the superhero movies. Even if there's no blood or actual stuff, there's still violence.
Totally. I like movie too. What I would like watch things that inspires me, and it's bring human inside.
Yeah. Well, was there no access other than the terror to anything but the terror? Like, were you because what you went through was cult mentality, gang mentality.
Yes.
They control. I mean, you're in a controlled environment. Is there a different scenario now for your fellow children in your country?
Totally. It's like. It's even as we speak, there are places right now that children have been used, and even as we speak in Iran, there's like a child soldier, and it's like we don't see, in especially in North America, what we see, we talk about terrorism and war and all these things, and we talk about it on a dinner table and say pass the gravy, and while we are watching a disaster on TV, because we don't see the impact.
Yes, we're disconnected. We're very disconnected
from humanity. That what can bring into our in my case as a child, and escape from country to country in a refugee camp, and being the things that I've been through, 17 treatments into 29 detoxes, a couple of times trying to kill myself, but altogether there's a message of hope that I'm here, and And if a person like me can go through all the pain and struggle and all the things that I've been through, and I sit here in Los Angeles in front of you beautiful people, that anybody can change their lives. And that's the message I'm trying to carry to whoever I spoke to.
What do you think has been the biggest catalyst for you in terms of, because there's some people that could have your story and be very angry at life and could be very angry at everyone that had a different type of experience than you did. And you see people that haven't gone through what you did and in the luxuries they have in life and the way that they complain about the luxuries and those things. But you're not that way. Like you want the best for people. What do you think is the catalyst of why that's what your stance is now?
I believe one of the most important transformation that I had was when I went in 12-step program, and I realized and I started feeling that I'm not a victim, because for many years I was feeling victimized my whole life, and I had to change that to realize, you know what, I am responsible for my life now, and to sit in here and people that they don't know me, when I become friends and talk to them, they can't even imagine like the personality that I have. Like people, I've been told that you're so kind, you're so loving, you're so friendly.
You're so clear.
So calm.
You're so clear. That's what I get from you, is just the clearness. Like I don't feel when I'm with you or talking to you that you're holding any of that anymore. Like it's you've somehow reconciled it, made peace with it, integrated it, transmuted it, become of service to it. Like that's what I get from you.
There's a peace.
Yeah.
There's a peace.
That seems impossible.
That's
for me listening,
yeah.
like for us listening, it just feels like impossible. Like
your voice is smoothing. You're just very calm and.
Thank you. It's it hasn't been easy road. It's but again, I had a transformation that and enable for me to enjoy this. I need to pass it around. I need to share it to the world that that's possible. And doesn't matter where we come from, what challenges we've been through, what color we are, and all the things that we've been through in our society, that we are human beings. And the only thing that I believe that counts for me today is love. Period. And you cannot argue with that.
Nope.
It's love.
Argue with that.
If you have a photo that's inspired you, that you've seen online, or that you've posted or you've taken and you've been like online in the last like 30 days, what would be your photo spire?
There is a friend of mine that he was really struggling in addiction, and right now he's sober for many years. And the post that he put on social media and the way that I watch him change his life is inspiring to me. And every time he put a post, it's like you can connect where you saw him many years ago and you saw him now, and they're trying to. It's just you cannot buy that, and that inspires me.
Essi's book is Shattered Soul: The True Story of a Child Soldier. Essi Bagheri. I am telling you, the read in this book will be better than any fictionalized super soldier story that Hollywood could come up with. And it's true, and you've overcome it, and you are a true superhero. So thank you, Essi.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Still to come, these two ladies are making impact from behind the scenes in their own unique way in Hollywood.
My role is one of a story whisperer. So I'm behind the scenes. No, you won't see my name anywhere.
I am the first video collection at the Academy that they've ever taken. Most of their research was always print. They never thought about film or video.
If you are doing extraordinary things from behind the scenes, from any walk of life, we'd love to hear from you. Send us a note on our website, frontandcenterpodcast.com. If you're ready to write that book you've been putting off, join us at guestpertpublishing.com for a how-to step-by-step online course that shares your publishing options and paces you on how to structure your book.
Welcome back to Front and Center with Jacquie Jordan.
What I do is provoke conversations and provoke a creative process.
Welcome back to Front and Center, and today we were talking to the behind-the-scenes people who are impacting collective storylines and collective narratives. I'm joined with Stephanie Cobian, show producer and co-host Phillip Andrew Barbb. We are the series where we meet the behind-the-scenes storytellers, change agents, and activators that affect and impact collective narratives. And if you're sticking with the sequence, you'll follow a bigger theme of a storytelling that I am sharing with you. And I like to say, I've been saying this with everybody, but joining us is a friend of mine, and I really do have some really cool friends. So let me just say, Sandra De Castro Buffington, being the inspiration in the business and Hollywood, has inspired 565 storylines on 91 TV shows across 35 networks, platforms in the span of just 3 years. This Brazilian light literally goes into production companies and showrunners and producers and kind of gives them a shakeup of what's going on in the world, and they incorporate in shows like Grey's Anatomy. Welcome, Sandra. Thanks for being
Jackie.
here.
It's so good to be here.
Yeah, talk about now. This is another true superhero. Tell us some of the shows you've done and how you do what you do.
And I've seen every Grey's Anatomy, if you have any of those to share.
Okay, good. Well, then we'll talk about one
one.
episode in particular. But what show haven't I worked with is almost that 565 storyline number was only in 3 years, and I've been doing this for 11 years. Anyway, my role is one of a story whisperer. So I'm behind the scenes. No, you won't see my name anywhere.
No credits, not on the back row credits.
But I have a partnership. I've had a partnership with the Writers Guild over a decade. And what I do is provoke conversations and provoke a creative process with the entertainment industry. So we get about 100 writers and producers in the room, and I throw out a topic. And so I'm going to use an example. About 18 months before the explosion of Me Too that nobody knew was coming, my intuition, because I work on intuition, I'm a meditator, and I get a lot of guidance that way. My intuition was focus the industry on rape culture, sexual consent, and human trafficking. My rational brain says, you don't want to do that. But my intuition was insistent, you do it, and you do it now. So we started with a series of panel discussions at the Writers Guild on these topics. And I bring in the most edgy people I can find, a woman who had been trafficked at 14 and survived, the assistant chief of police, who's a woman who came in full blue uniform with a gun on her hip. We bring in experts, and we also bring in industry people who have created storylines that are related to the topic. We start a conversation. And this was all around trafficking, rape, and sexual consent. And at the end of the night, I say, for those of you who would like to do a deeper dive, next week we're going on a story tour. We can accept 20 people, so sign up tonight. And I curate trips into the community. So we go all around LA. For example, we went to the LAPD and met the entire human trafficking task force. We went to a secret house that rescues 12 to 17-year-olds from trafficking. We met with a lawyer who represents trafficked people. So what happens? 5 major shows call me up afterwards and say, we're doing the story. Will you bring the experts into the writer's room? So as you can see, it starts with a big group, gets to a smaller group, and now we're down to 5 shows. And I match experts to their topics, and we go in and we spend hours with them asking questions and taking notes. So we'll talk about Grey's Anatomy, as I promised. So some of you may have seen that just this past March, Grey's Anatomy had an episode that aired called Silent After All These Years, and it was on rape. And that show was so powerful, and I'll unpack it a little bit in a minute, but I'll jump to the result. The National Rape Hotline number, which is run by RAIN, this organization, said there was a 43% increase in calls to the national hotline number immediately after that Grey's Anatomy episode aired.
Wow.
What does this tell us? Well, first of all, the research shows this too. Storytelling has the power to transform our world. It has the power to move us to action. It has the power to inspire us. It has the power to predict our future.
And you have also taken people worldwide on your
Yes.
tours. Because you've invited me to one of your trips in India. I mean, you've taken
Yes.
groups.
So way back, I think it was 2008, when I first moved to LA, I got a download in meditation saying, do your part to unite East and West. Because these downloads come in headlines. And I'm like, it's like startling. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, how do I do that? And then I got a download of a complete template. And it was, go work with Bollywood the way you work with Hollywood. And then bring them together, Hollywood and Bollywood. So I started, my very first story tour was to not just India. I actually took a group of writers who had come out of the showrunners training program out of the Writers Guild. I first took them to Johannesburg, South Africa. And then from Johannesburg, we flew directly to Mumbai, India. And, you know, here are people who probably spend a lot of their time in writers' rooms or on sets. And I am taking them into the, you know, second largest slum in the world. We're going into the city dump where 300,000 people live in Mumbai. Not to get depressed, but to actually get inspired by the people who are change agents. 3 young kids who grew up in the city dump who went on to college, and now they're community organizers. Okay, this is why I cry. It's so moving. Well, the result of that particular story tour was that we had an amazing showrunner with us in South Africa by the name of Carol Barbb. And she was the executive producer of the show Touch at the time. And we heard a story about a community solution to domestic violence in South Africa. And she wrote that into season 1, episode 3 of this series, Touch, that starred Kiefer Sutherland. And she recreated South Africa on a hill in LA, and it was so beautifully done. Well, what happened is South African television also picked up the story, and they incorporated this story into one of their series. And this practice, this community solution, I better tell you what it is that instead of ignoring violence, what like most countries in the world do, when they hear violence going on in a home, everybody in the community runs home and grabs a pot or pan from the kitchen and a spoon. And they go stand on the lawn or right in front of the building where the violence is taking place, and they start banging and clanging, banging, clanging. It's a cacophony. Imagine a whole community banging, clanging. And what it says is, we see you. We are witnesses, and we are protesting, and we will not stop until the violence ceases.
Love it.
Oh,
yeah.
And it works.
When you start getting these type of storylines into shows, you're really making an impact.
Now I have to go back to Grey's Anatomy. Because with that rape episode that had the huge impact, why were so many women motivated to make a phone call and report their rape or that of a relative? At the end, when this survivor is being wheeled down this long hallway in the hospital to go to surgery, all of the women, staff in the hospital have lined up.
Beautiful scene.
Right? On both sides of the hall. And they're standing in silent witness, look at this, and love for this woman who survived. And they just stand there fully present. And she is just blown away that she's not alone. She doesn't have to stand alone because all of the women, staff in the hospital, stand with her. So
you're making me cry. I remember the scene.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it,
yeah.
You know, what you're doing and what you're talking about is it really does show, you know, for so many of us that are in entertainment and, you know, with the nature of what this is, the power of the storytelling and the power of media and what we're able to do.
Yes.
You know, and I think you saw, you know, they saw it in music. I don't know if it was last year or before when a rapper, Logic, had a song. It was basically the song was like the suicide hotline.
Right.
You know, and it was like, so you have all these kids all across the country, across the world, that because of a 3-minute song were able to feel inspired or at least not alone and knew they had an answer.
Right.
And I think sometimes it's easy to assume that we know these things, that, oh, you can call this number, but a lot of people don't grow up knowing what the possibilities are, and they don't know. And until they have access to it,
yes,
and
they don't know
sometimes
that it's
television is still only the
option.
only form of communication.
Totally.
So
I mean, especially if these things, you know, when these things are going on within households, sometimes the TV is the only
escape.
Escape.
So I think that shows the power of, as people in media, as people in entertainment, as musicians, art, like the responsibility and the opportunity that we have.
Yes.
To use it to be able to connect the world rather than push each other away.
That is exactly why I do the kind of work I do. See, I started my career in developing countries. I worked for 20 years overseas in the poorest countries in the world. And that's where I started working with television, because exactly as you both said, my goal is to reach the people who are not even asking the questions. And one of the things we learned from research all over the world is that if you make something a household word, something that may be taboo or not known, if you make something a household word, which means people talk about it at home, it's a predictor of mass change.
Or a negative change, as we just saw with our previous guest, Essi Bagheri, who was a child soldier who was labeled a terrorist. Could you label another person something scarier than a terrorist? You know, and in that case, he's a child.
Yes.
You know, and I think along lines what you're saying, and how I'm just relating to what you're saying, is that some of my background in the media has also been observing how there's been exploitation and manipulation within the industry. And I think that it's so why this part of my life is about bringing what you do forward, because you don't know the manipulation side of it. You can't know the positive side of how it goes. And if you're not informed, you don't know how what you're receiving in those stories.
And it's easy to justify when we're in those situations where we're making decisions that we feel it's easy to justify, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's this thing. And it's like, it is a big deal.
Yes, it's a big deal. And we also know it's always story first. So a lot of do-gooders try to disguise finger wagging creatively. It doesn't work because there is a theoretical framework in the social science literature, getting really wonky on you, so stay with me. What does it mean? Okay, we're in a movie theater. Think about your favorite movie of all time. What happens? We lose track of time. We forget our surroundings. We come to care deeply about the characters, don't want the story to end, and we go into total suspension of disbelief. That is transportation. That's from compelling storytelling. That's what has the power to move someone to action, to increase our knowledge, to shift our attitudes, to change our behavior. Transportation. So conversely, if you're finger waggy, let me tell you what the message is here, it doesn't work. So it's story first, it's entertainment first. And this is why a lot of people call what I do content integration.
You have also impacted storylines not only on social issues, but on health issues as well.
I connected 2 women Harvard human genome mapping scientists to Grey's Anatomy. This is some years ago now, but nobody knew what human genome mapping was back then. And so Grey's Anatomy got so inspired. I remember that initial phone call. They opened a human genome mapping lab in Seattle Grace Hospital on the show. And so then they had a whole season of programming around human genome mapping. And they even had their lead actors tweeting to their fan bases about human genome mapping.
Is that satisfying for you? Do you get emotional satisfaction from seeing the results of your work?
It is what I live for. It has been a driving force for me to uplift people and to, make their worlds better. Ever since I was a kid in South America, that's my driving force. So it is satisfying. And how do I know we're making a difference? I mean, that's the other question. It never feels like enough.
We have a segment, Photospire, which is an inspirational photo that's online. So it would be #Photospire. What would be a recent photo that you've either posted or seen posted online maybe in the last 30 days?
Can I pick 2?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so one of them is mothers from Israel and mothers from Palestine.
Did you post or you saw it?
I saw and reposted. And they are marching together for peace. These are the mothers, and they say, we don't want our children killed anymore. So uniting areas that have been historically in such conflict and brutalized each other, and it's the women, the mothers who stand up and say no more. Oh my God. Okay, so that's one. The other is all of the stories that are coming out now of instead of sending a child to detention in school for misbehaving, they send them to meditation. And the research shows that meditation in schools can bring violence and bullying down to zero.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yes, love you.
Up next, this behind-the-scenes legend has interviewed the biggest names in Hollywood. Find out how her work has made an impact.
The secret of selling a movie is not talking it to death. It's opening it with something soft enough to get a local producer who you need to play it.
Looking back on this career of 30 plus years, which I think is wonderful, are you surprised about what happened to you, that you're famous, and are you comfortable with the fame?
Sometimes more than not.
Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at TVGuestpert.
Alex Detail was a child genius who saved the world from the evil harvesters. But a decade later, this mysterious alien force has returned, and Alex is no longer a prodigy. Now, in order to save the world again, he must survive his kidnapping, find his evil clone, and get his ship to the planet Pluto, where he will uncover the universe's ultimate power. Alex Detail's Revolution, a thrilling new novel by Darren Campo. Buy online or wherever books are sold.
Welcome back to Front and Center with Jacquie Jordan.
I heard I had to be real careful not to ask you about Bond.
Really? What do you think I would do?
I hope kiss me, but I don't think that's the way it works at interviews. So.
Welcome back to Front and Center. I'm Jacquie Jordan, and this is the show where the storytellers, change agents, and activators are making impact from behind the scenes. Joining us, I call her my fairy godmother. She is the author of Nearly Famous, Tales from the Hollywood Trenches, and she literally is an example of our show, a behind-the-scenes influencer and impactor whose career has spanned a really fantastic and significant time in filmmaking history. Reba Merrill, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I am really good.
I can't thank you enough for your behind-the-scenes support and your friendship. And you've got a phenomenal, just a phenomenal story where we just saw the clip of you with Sean Connery speaking.
Oh.
So how many interviews do you think you have accumulated in your time as a celebrity interviewer?
Well, I'll tell you how many have been digitized. That's the only record we have is 500 right now.
500.
Though the Academy, the Motion Picture Academy, which has my archive, I am part of their archives. They have my collection, said there were quite a few tapes that were not digitized, which they will digitize them. And I just want to say this. I'm going to be I am the first video collection at the Academy that they've ever taken. Most of their research was always print. They never thought about film or video.
That's crazy. Can I just say they never thought about film or video? Is that what you just said? That's crazy. Okay. I thought I heard that. Oops.
Well, this is in the research part.
Yes, okay. But still.
So what has happened is USC has built a new vault, and I have no idea who put up the money, but it was for the Shoah Foundation that was created by Steven Spielberg. It was an invitation only from USC to the Academy, and they chose my collection to sit right next to Steven Spielberg. So I kind of like that.
Congratulations.
But it's for posterity. It's to show Hollywood.
Can you name drop some of your best interviews, your most impressive ones?
Well, I would say my Harrison Ford interview from Air Force One was the one that impressed me the most. It wasn't the first time that I had interviewed him, but it was strange. I do a lot of research, and I knew that I was sitting down with a curmudgeon.
Yes. I produced him before.
He doesn't like you.
He doesn't like it.
Kill you.
He doesn't like interviews. He doesn't like this part of the game.
So I walked in, and I never told him that I had interviewed him for Star Wars, and that I wrote about it in this book, how terrible he was.
And Nearly Famous.
At least I wrote that he was terrible, but I just let my 27-year-old grandson read the interview, which I have already apologized in a million different ways. And he says, "Oh, Grandma, you really got him to talk." And the whole time I thought that he didn't say a thing, and that I did something that you're not going to do and you won't do in the interview with the camera running, because it was a one camera shoot. I looked at my watch, because I was so bored. I said, please get me out of here. I didn't say anything because I had learned my lesson. But I did say to him, don't worry about the questions. I know all the answers. And whatever that translated to him changed the whole dynamic of our entire relationship, because I went back and interviewed him a lot more times, and he actually knew who I was, which is very rare.
That's a beautiful compliment. I mean, to the fairness to an A-list actor, they have to do these press junket interviews to promote a film, whether they're an extrovert or not. Just because they're an actor doesn't mean they're necessarily an extrovert. And
wait a minute, most of them are not.
Exactly.
Most of them, what makes a really great actor is somebody who's shy, who can take the character playing and put it on like really fine leather gloves, and that you don't see the seam. So, hey, they don't want to talk.
And in our insatiable celebrity culture of give us more of you, they sit for hours doing these press junkets about the film that they're doing, and they talk to Interviewer, Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, and they do these interviews, and it's tiring. I don't think they don't always enjoy it. So if he remembers your name,
it's a mix of personal and what they're trying to sell, which movies change, shows change. So you have a lot of hard work to do.
Yes, and I didn't do that.
It's the same thing. And what I was going to add to that, and even with all of those places that you spoke on, now because of digital being so prominent, and everyone has a podcast, everybody has a video blog, everyone has all these things. You have a lot of people that are inexperienced in asking questions and interviewing.
Does that drive you nuts, Reba?
So what? Yeah, what's your
advice?
Happen?
Does that drive you nuts when it see it happen?
I'm really very diplomatic now that I'm on this podcast. Not just this podcast, but I have been podcasted.
And you were a female leader in what you did.
I came up with a concept, which I figured was about this small, is that I would do the interviews and your television show would play them. And you couldn't cut yourself in. And you couldn't even give me credit. But you could put your voice where mine was, and you got a script. And that little idea became very big.
Very big. Mm-hmm. It became a template, too.
Yes.
It became a template. I mean, they still do it to some degree. I mean, they still do it.
Well, they do it. I mean, I did, in the beginning, I did the interviews in hotel rooms. Then I did interviews on film sets. And then in 1991, I got a chance to start doing interviews for international. Totally different world. First of all, they don't even talk to domestic, which makes it really different. But the truth of the matter is, what was wonderful about this is that I got to sit in a hotel room and somebody did my hair and makeup, which they never did when you're on a film set. And even though you didn't see me, they ran a camera on me for sound. I was the backup sound, which was just fine. So I got to see a lot of who I was and because you never get to see who you are. And I have a new book that I don't know when it'll come out because it just went to the publisher and they haven't read the 570 pages that I sent them.
You're being published by Rare Bird Lit, which is awesome. Congratulations.
But the truth of the matter is, it's all the interviews. Well, not all. My publisher said, pick 20 to 30 interviews that you like. And I picked 44. It was like a mother. I mean, these are my babies.
You've done Sean Connery, Harrison Ford, Tom Hanks, Whitney Houston.
Cher. Two Chers. Cher good and Cher I'm going to kill you. In between, she won an Oscar. In between, this was only her second film. So she talked. She talked about everything. And I've got it. But the truth of the matter is, when I interviewed her 10 years later, she was miserable. She didn't like her director, Paul Mazursky. She didn't like her leading man, Ryan O'Neal. And so she took it out on me.
How do you navigate through all these different personalities of these stars?
Well, one of the things I learned, and I'd really like to go back for a second. I never asked the same question anybody else did, for the simple reason is by the time I'm working for International, the studio is now giving me 60 minutes of hype. And when they give me 10 minutes to do an interview, I want my money's worth. I want it all. And so I realized what makes me me is that I'm nosy. But when you work in Hollywood, you're not allowed to go too far. But let me tell you where you can go. You can always go to childhood. You can always ask them a question about something that happened in their childhood. You can always go to failure. Oh my goodness, failure is a great subject. Because what I was looking for was one thing. I was the sport at recess, opening comment coming out of my interview out of Harrison Ford. Okay? And if you don't believe that every television producer, and by now they're playing in 60 countries, my interviews, didn't love Harrison Ford admitting he used to get beat up at school. And that's what I did.
Yeah, that's a great, I mean,
and the thing is that
that's a headliner.
But you asked me a question. They're always good to me.
I say it's because you always made them look good, which is part of
because I was the puff. I mean, she does all the serious work and I'm the puff person. But the truth of the matter is, I can tell you, Tommy Lee Jones, when you go to do an interview, he already sets you up. Like, I dare you.
I dare you.
Yeah.
And so I used to be a blonde. And so when I deal with people like that, I become a very dumb blonde. Please help me do this.
With all your experience that you had, of the times where you would interview someone maybe earlier in their career, once success had started to come in, and then had the opportunity to go back later, was there anything that you could see a correlation that was a trend of how people would change once they became stars?
It's called money. Lindsay Lohan for The Parent Trap, adorable at 12. Lindsay Lohan from Hervey Fully Loaded kept me waiting 45 minutes while she sat on the phone. And the studios did nothing. She went from adorable 12 to getting $7 million.
And we know what happened with that, too.
How can you not be affected by this outrageous two things, the money and the accolades? The money's true, the accolades are you know what. Right. Oh, you're wonderful. And you're so good looking.
Reba, you have been very candid about some of the studio abuse that predates the Me Too movement.
Well, I know this is a podcast, and I will censor it as I talk. The first job that I went looking for, I was offered all the off-camera interviews I wanted to do because that's what I knew I wanted to do. I didn't know I was going to have a company. I was just looking for a job. And it was for a major studio, and he was the president of a division. And he said to me, I've looked at your reel. Let's have dinner and discuss, and I'll tell you all about what films I want you to work on. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is Hollywood. I'm going out to dinner with the president of a division of a major studio. And so we got to dessert. Oh, by the way, it was a fancy restaurant in Beverly.
That's the all that glitters is not gold moment.
That's right. And he said, I'll give you all the movies you can handle, and all you have to do is perform a sex act 3 times a week.
And
I have to tell you, I thought it was a joke. I'm married. I did go tell my husband. I didn't tell anybody else. But a week later, I thought it was a joke. A week later, he calls and he said, are you willing to come work for fill in the blank studio? And I knew that was
conditional.
The question was, were you willing?
Yeah, it was conditional.
Yes. And I didn't. And I was blackballed from that studio for 8 years.
And you also started the peak of your career. You got a lot of momentum much later than women usually do. How did you get to Hollywood?
I failed my way up or down, whatever. I had worked for CBS in San Diego. I was fired for my age, and then I got 17 rejections and an Emmy. I won an Emmy in there, a local Emmy.
What does it mean? You've used the phrase with us before, you're Hollywood's best kept secret.
It means that the studios did not want anybody or production companies or whoever hired me to know what I was doing, because what I did look like a Barbara Walters interview. Because the secret of selling a movie is not talking it to death. It's opening it with something soft enough to get a local producer who you need to play it. The center is the hard sell. Ram in as many behind-the-scenes footage or movie clips as you can get in. And the end is Harrison Ford's looking me in the eye and saying, I had the best job in the world. Of course, when I talk about that, I'm going to tell you, I had the best job in the world.
Do you have any recent, posts that you've seen online, pictures that has inspired you, a photo spiral in the last, say, 30 days? Maybe one that you've shared or posted or taken.
I went to Poland with my entire family to say goodbye to my husband, their father, and my lover. And we had a picture taken at the restaurant that we shared his 60th birthday on. We came back many years later, and in that restaurant was all of us saying goodbye to my husband, their father, and their grandfather. And it was probably the most moving thing because he was the most amazing man, and I wanted the world to know that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
That's beautiful. Reba, what's the name of your upcoming book?
Got it.
Got it.
Got it.
Got it. And also Nearly Famous is your first book, Tales from the Hollywood Trenches. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your impact from behind the scenes and being with us here front and center. And to find out more information, RebaMerrill.com.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Front and Center with Jacquie Jordan podcast. Please subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram at TVGuestpert. We'd love to hear from you.
What AI can do, artificial intelligence, is it could put a doctor literally in your pocket.
Everything that we see on TV and all of entertainment is a balancing for something going on in society.
Only a Netflix and, an Amazon, for example, could be front and center of what was happening because the networks had what we call legacy agreements.